On the surface, Elvis Presley may have had it all. However, the king of rock and roll's marriage to Priscilla Presley was mostly tumultuous, with drug use, infidelity, and loneliness dominating the couple's time together. This is the true story about Elvis's relationship with Priscilla Presley. Elvis Presley and Priscilla Beaulieu's relationship started in the summer of 1959 in West Germany, of all places. Priscilla's father, Paul, was in the Air Force at the time and had just been transferred to West Germany. She was just 14, having recently won the title of Queen of Del Valle Junior High, and was nervous about moving to a new place. Luckily, Elvis was also stationed in West Germany, not far from the base that the Beaulieu family would be staying at. Elvis was drafted into the service in 1958, and during his time in Germany, he was part of the 1st Medium Tank Battalion, 32nd Armor. Priscilla was introduced to Elvis by Curry Grant, a member of the Air Force stationed at the same base as her family. She was incredibly nervous about meeting the star for the first time, and thought that because of her young age, she wouldn't make an impression on him. She was dead wrong. Presley immediately took a liking to Priscilla, performing several songs for her on his piano and introducing her to his grandmother, Minnie Mae Presley. She did not return home until 2 in the morning, much to her parents' chagrin, and she was already starting to fall in love. When Elvis called Grant to arrange another meeting a few days later, Priscilla was ecstatic about seeing him again.
He just connected. He connected.
Their relationship, notoriously turbulent, got off to a rocky start from the very beginning. According to biographer Peter Guralnick in Careless Love, The Unmaking of Elvis Presley, the rock icon had started dating a 19-year-old German woman named Elisabeth Stefaniak before he met Priscilla. Elvis and Stefaniak had started seeing each other around Thanksgiving time in 1958, just months after Elvis was stationed in Germany. By Valentine's Day 1959, Stefaniak was living with Elvis in his home on the base. She claims they refrained from having full intercourse due to Elvis's fear of pregnancy, but they slept together every night and fooled around. When Elvis started seeing Priscilla Beaulieu the following summer in 1959, he was still sleeping with Stefaniak every night. She became intensely jealous of the blooming relationship, and especially of Priscilla. However, it was becoming clear to Stefaniak that Elvis was much more interested in his new friend than he was in her. He started devoting more and more of his intimate time with Priscilla, and left Stefaniak dangling on a string. As one might expect, adapting to the new lifestyle proved to be tough at times for Priscilla Beaulieu. The hustle and bustle of everyday life as an Air Force brat was certainly one thing, but dating one of the most famous musicians and movie stars in the world was quite another. During Christmas of 1962, 17-year-old Priscilla went to see Elvis Presley for a quick visit. Since they had limited time together, they tried to cram in as many activities as possible, and all of the excitement started to wear her out. According to Guralnick's biography Careless Love, Elvis gave Priscilla 2 big red pills to relax, and she ended up being knocked out for 2 days. This was the second time that she had used drugs with Elvis. Earlier in the summer, Priscilla had taken a trip to Las Vegas with Elvis and his entourage. Between limousine rides and playing blackjack, Priscilla found herself overwhelmed by the excitement. According to Priscilla's autobiography, Elvis and Me, she began using amphetamines and sleeping pills in order to keep up. Elvis himself had started abusing prescription medication during his time in the Army, and by the time he was dating Priscilla, it had only gotten worse. When Elvis Presley and Priscilla Beaulieu started dating, it was a whirlwind experience for the young woman. She was only 14 at the time and had just started going to high school when the relationship started. Not surprisingly, dating the king of rock and roll sometimes took a toll on her schoolwork. According to Priscilla's autobiography, when she first went back to school after a date with the star, she could not pay attention because her thoughts were entirely on Elvis. Instead of focusing on her schoolwork, she was imagining spending time with the young rock star and trying to relive the memories from the previous night.
I occupied a lot of his time. He had an affinity toward me. He had a great care for me.
In 1963, after the Beaulieu family moved back stateside, she convinced her parents to let her move to Memphis, Tennessee, so that she could be closer to Elvis. However, Priscilla still had to keep going to school, which she tried to do while seeing Elvis nearly every night. During a 2022 interview with the Daily Mail, she described the challenges of trying to balance the two together. The couple would frequently stay out until the early hours of the morning, and she would barely have time for a few hours of sleep before going off to school. Priscilla told the Daily Mail, "As a result, I didn't do well with the grades. Still, it was worth it for her if it meant she could spend her free time with Elvis."
We did. We had a really close relationship.
In the summer of 1963, Elvis Presley returned to Hollywood to start shooting the film Viva Las Vegas, which would star Ann-Margret, a 22-year-old actress who was just starting to skyrocket to popularity. The two started to spend a considerable amount of time together, and when the press got wind, they immediately dubbed the two a couple and published an article about their romance. However, Elvis had started seeing Priscilla Beaulieu again earlier in the year on a trip to Las Vegas, and she was living in his parents' home in Memphis, Tennessee. Priscilla was becoming worried about the increasing number of headlines about Elvis and Ann-Margret, and wanted to visit him on set, but he kept making excuses for why she could not come and see him in person. Finally, she demanded to come and visit the set after months of excuses and suspicions. The visit initially started well, but on the last day of production, the press published a story titled "Elvis Wins Love of Ann-Margret," in which Ann-Margret claimed in an interview to be engaged to Elvis. Ann-Margret later said that the press had fabricated the entire interview, but the damage was already done. Elvis managed to calm down Priscilla, who was understandably upset, by promising to never see the young actress again. In reality, he continued to engage in secret communications with Ann-Margret for months.
I mean, he spent more time kissing women in the
Yes.
crowd on the lips than he
yeah.
did singing. I mean, was that difficult to watch?
Yeah.
Elvis Presley and his entourage returned to Graceland in late November to settle down for the 1966 Christmas season. They arrived to a fully made-up nativity scene at the house, and all the residents came out to greet them in a very joyous affair. Elvis ended up donating over $100,000 over the course of the year, highlighted by gifts to all the Memphis charities during the holiday season. His friends noted that he seemed to be in great spirits at the time, and he started spending a lot of time in the barn with the horses on his ranch. Both Priscilla Beaulieu and her father had been sending Elvis signals for months that they were expecting marriage to happen soon, and Elvis himself had been considering the possibility for a while. Finally, just days before Christmas, Elvis finally asked Priscilla to marry him. On May 1st, 1967, Priscilla Beaulieu finally became Priscilla Presley. According to close friend Jerry Schilling in his biography, Me and a Guy Named Elvis, My Lifelong Friendship with Elvis Presley, the singer's manager Colonel Tom Parker arranged the ceremony and made sure it was a very private affair. Even most of the members of the Memphis Mafia, Elvis's close-knit group of friends and followers, found themselves without invitations. They were married at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, one of the premier hotels on the Strip at the time. The couple entered the hotel through the back entrance to avoid attention, and were married in the very early hours of the morning. 2 MGM photographers were on hand to document the occasion. After their May wedding in Las Vegas, the happy couple immediately embarked on what would be an extravagant honeymoon. In her autobiography, Elvis and Me, Priscilla Presley recalled how Elvis was able to borrow the personal Learjet to famous musician Frank Sinatra to fly them from Sin City to Palm Springs, California. They were immediately greeted by a throng of reporters, both at the airport and outside the house they were staying at. They had not slept in nearly 2 days by this point, but they were both elated with the joy of being newlyweds. The honeymoon was special for both of them, and Priscilla Presley, still just 21 at the time, was finally feeling accepted by both her husband and the mainstream press.
So if I could say to you, right, you can relive one moment with Elvis again, which one would you choose?
Probably our wedding.
9 months to the day that they had their wedding, Elvis and Priscilla Presley welcomed their daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, to the world. She was born on February 1st, 1968 in Memphis, Tennessee, at her parents' home at the Graceland estate. Lisa Marie lived there until she was 4 years old, at which point her parents got divorced and separated. However, Elvis and Priscilla Presley had joint custody of her, so she was still able to split her time between the two of them, at least for a few years. Tragically, Lisa Marie Presley was only 9 when her father died of apparent heart failure, so she grew up not really knowing him. However, their lives share some similarities. Both Lisa Marie and her dad had issues with addiction dating back to their younger years, with Lisa Marie using drugs by the time she was just 17. On a happier note, she also had a successful music career like her father, though not nearly at the same level. While casual fans of Elvis Presley might not know this, he was actually a dedicated practitioner of karate. After he married Priscilla, Elvis and his wife started doing karate together. At first, Priscilla just did it to spend time with her husband. The more Priscilla got involved in karate, however, the more she fell in love with it. Although karate initially seemed to bring the couple together, by 1972, it was beginning to have the opposite effect. Priscilla started to take private lessons with expert trainer Mike Stone. Eventually, the private lessons turned intimate. Priscilla wrote in her autobiography, "My relationship with Mike had now developed into an affair." She was torn by her intense love for her husband and her feelings of neglect and loneliness that had started to develop over the past years. A short time later, Priscilla Presley left her husband for the final time.
He was the love of my life, truly. If anything, I left because I needed to find out what the world was like, really.
Though the couple entered into their marriage in May 1967 with the intention of staying together forever, by 1973 the relationship was in tatters. After her affair with Mike Stone and their subsequent breakup a few months later, Priscilla and Elvis Presley rarely saw each other. According to Elvis and Me, they still chatted over the phone, but they knew the relationship was over. He had started dating a new woman, Linda Thompson, by the time the divorce proceedings began at the end of the year. He was incredibly emotional during the divorce hearing, and Priscilla Presley comforted her husband throughout the ordeal.
As much as he wanted to be married and have a family, I don't know if he was ever cut to be married.
Elvis and Priscilla Presley's marriage had been tumultuous for years, as issues relating to intimacy, infidelity, and loneliness began to overwhelm them. The divorce was made final on October 9, 1973, but it was hardly the end of their relationship. The two agreed to split custody of their daughter, Lisa Marie Presley, and Elvis agreed to give his ex-wife a $100,000 lump sum settlement, along with $1,500 in monthly support. If you or anyone you know is struggling with addiction issues, help is available. Visit the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration website or contact SAMHSA's National Helpline at 1-800-662-HELP-4357. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more grunge videos about your favorite stuff are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.